Good day, Jen. I am Taisirna Aisyah with metric number 287134, and this is my video presentation of my research exploring Malaysia domestic tourism, expenditure patterns, and key driver on spending. Chapter 1 will discuss the overview and the problem statement. The issue raised by this research is the fluctuating domestic tourist expenditure through years due to COVID-19 outbreaks. One problem was pointed out in this research where solutions and ways to develop these industries' performance are seek. Next, the research question and objectives of study. Basically, it tells just the same thing. And for research question, there are two questions asked. The first one, we want to find out how does the poorer and the richer of domestic tourists in Malaysia allocate their budget trips across all different types of expenditure. And the second question asked was which factor have the strongest influence towards spending. And for objectives of study, also have two things. The first one, we want to analyze how does these different types of household income groups allocate their budget trips, and which factors influence the most. For scope of study, we decided to focus on the whole Malaysian in general so that we can get a bigger demographic groups. However, there are a few exceptions or exclusion made to make sure the data we received later will have more accuracy. So for those individuals who resides in specialized institutions excluded from being our targeted respondents, and those individuals are who resides in prisons or mental hospitals, and also those individuals below 18 are excluded from being our targeted respondents, considering that they don't have their own income yet. For Chapter 2, all the empirical findings from previous studies for variables chosen will be discussed. And there are 5 explanatory variables that were found out that are believed to have influence on spending, and I made the household income variable as the variable that I think have a strong or big potential to become the most influential variables. And Engel's law is a theory founded by Ernst Engel, saying that as household income increases, the proportion of income spent on necessities decrease, while spending on those non-essential things increase. In Chapter 3, the methodology to gain data is explained, and this quantitative data is using a primary data to retrieve an information, and it is a first-hand data collected by researchers, and there are numerous ways to gain this data, and the famous one is using questionnaire surveys, or some use interviews. And our data structure will be cross-sectional data where observations are made at the same period of time. In designing the questionnaire structure, we use a convenient sampling, which means that the respondents who participated in our questionnaire survey are those easy to access and have a relatively high degree of cooperation. And we will not only select the people at the University Utara Malaysia, we also ask people outside of University Utara Malaysia to answer our survey, considering our potential or our focus respondents are the whole Malaysian as a whole. We also use the snowball sampling method. A snowball sampling is when you ask a respondent to invite other people they know to join the questionnaire, to ask the questionnaire, like how a snowball grows bigger as it rolls and picks up more snowballs. Variable operationalization includes both explanatory variables and dependent variables. In my survey questionnaire, each of these variables are asked from the dependent variables to the independent variables, and the questions asked for representing the variables, not only a single question, but we also ask a few questions more to get a better understanding. For example, a question for spending variable, the dependent variable, we ask questions like how much in average their expenditure during their travel, and it is an open-ended question, which means respondents are free to insert their whatever answer. And for factors of tourist satisfaction, marketing strategies, and motivation towards travel, there are a few aspects or questions asked under these variables, and the answer choice provided by me are using a Likert scale. To answer our research questions, there are two methods used, which are the ordinary least squares or OLS and descriptive statistics. Descriptive statistics will appear in summary statistic tables, while the OLS test, the result will be shown using model estimation table from a regression test that will be run. And there are two models used in OLS, with another 4 sub-models. The first model is using the Lin-Lin model, which represented by M1 and M2 model, and the second is double log or log-log model, represented by M3 and M4 model. And M1 is for Lin-Lin model, and in this model there are only 2 variables tested through regression, which are the spending variable and the household income variable, the explanatory variable. The household income variables are chosen to be inserted in this M1 model because it is believed to have a strong influence towards spending. M2 is another submodel for the Lin-Lin model, and it's just the same with the previous M1, but for M2, the other remaining 4 explanatory variables are included as well. M3, on the other hand, is for the double log model. In this model, some of the variables are transformed into the logarithmic equations, and the variables selected in this model are same with the M1, which are the spending variable and the household income variable. In M4, the spending and household income variables are transformed into logarithmic, and then we add the other 4 explanatory variables. Moving on to the next chapter, chapter 4, which will discuss the findings of this study. For the summary statistics table, it will answer the first question, how the poorer and the richer of domestic tourists in Malaysia allocate their budget trip. And then the column boxes is about household income group, which is actually household income is also part of the explanatory variable. And actually in the questionnaire, questions about household income were answered with an open-ended question, but then it was categorized into 3 different groups, which are low income, middle income, and high income. And it was concluded that there are only 7 respondents who come from high income family, and 16 from low income, and the other 17 are from middle income. Okay, first we look at the dependent variable. Household income indeed has a significant correlation towards spending, with the p-value of 0.018, and the mean value from the high income level group recorded the highest, which is 1,985 ringgit 70 cents, while the lowest was from the low income family, which only 562 ringgit 50 cents. Next, we look at the expenditure type. None of the expenditures are significant to the spending, as every p-value recorded exceeds the 0.05%. However, if we look at the mean value, food and beverage expenditure recorded the highest mean value from middle and low income respondents. And based on the mean values for each household income group, we can see that they distribute their disposable income differently. For example, the low household income group mostly will spend their money to buy food and drinks, the necessary things. Therefore, these findings answer the first question for this research, how these each different types of household income groups allocate their budget. Low and middle household income group mostly will spend their budget to buy food and drinks, while those with high income level respondents tend to buy use their money to purchase, to go for shopping. Next, the model estimation table, and this table will be able to answer the second question for this research. For M1, the first column, which includes spending and household income variables, these 2 variables are included to run a regression. The coefficient value for household income variables is 619 ringgit 20 cents, with only one star marked. leads to the meaning that coefficient is significant at 10%. And this coefficient means as income increases by 1 ringgit, domestic tourists will tend to spend their allocation for about 619 ringgit 20 cents. The R-square value is 0.152, explaining that the changes by this single variable is associated with about 15.2% changes towards spending variable. And also, the F statistics is 0.018, which suggests that the model overall is significantly correlate with household income. M2 recorded a factor of motivation towards travel received the highest value of coefficient, which is 1011.9, and even the p-value is significant at 1%, indicating that for each 1 unit increase in the motivation score, spending on domestic travel increases by 1011 ringgit 90 cents, ceteris paribus. Household income also has a correlation with spending, but it only for 5%. R-square value is 0.52, where changes in all of the variables jointly are linked with about 51.7% change in the spending variables. F statistics is 7.28 with the p-value less than 0.001, meaning that the model overall is statistically significant and is a significant predictor of spending. For M3, where the spending and household income variables are transformed into logarithmic, the coefficient for household income is 40 cents only, with only significant at 1%. And this means if household income increases by 1 ringgit, the spending for travel also increase, but only by about 40 cents. R-square value is 0.8, where changes in household income R-square value is 0.80, where changes in household income variable are associated with change in spending by about 80%, and the F statistics value is 3.28 with the p-value also less than 1%, which defines that it is really significant with spending variables. For M4, recorded the coefficient value of 0.348 for motivation for travels factor, statistically significant with spending for 1%, and factor of marketing strategies have a significant negative relationship with spending variable. This means for every 1% increase in marketing strategies makes people lessen their spending on domestic travel to 0.271%. So in conclusion, tourist spending is really affected by variable identified, and according to our findings from our test, summary statistics table answered the first question, where higher income respondents allocate their incomes towards shopping, and low and middle income household tend to spend their money more on food and beverage. For the second question, which answered using the OLS method, we get the answer where motivation for travels is the most influential variables that could determine spending of domestic tourists. The household income factor also influence the spending of domestic tourists, but this factor is ranked as the second. For a better development in the future for this industry, Ministry of Tourism, Arts and Culture launched Malaysia's National Tourism Policy 2020 until 2030, laying out a clear plan to pursue for the future of Malaysia's tourism industry over the next 10 years. Many strategies and tactics are explained in order to achieve all of the initiatives mentioned. And there are a lot of limitations that occurred from this study, and one of them is because the small size of the sample. The sample size is very small with only 40 respondents, while this research topic focus on the whole Malaysian. A small sample of research will lead to less accuracy to reflect a variety of Malaysian population. And for the future study, it is advisable to include a big size of sample for a better and high accuracy of the representativeness and findings. Other than that, we can include additional variable and categorize so people will be able to understand more about the factors influencing the behavior of tourists in terms of their spending. That's all. Thank you from me.